Yes. So, hello everybody. It's 7 p.m. Berlin time. I hope you're doing amazingly well. Of course, we had a little hiccup here with, the stream starting too soon, and we had to hello everybody. Set a new stream. 7 p.m. Berlin time. The echo is coming from Mr. Fiedler, so please mute the amazingly well YouTube video, of course, we had a little if possible. Done. Okay. Here's Mr. Thomas Fiedler. Hello.
Hello, everyone. Hello, everyone.
Thank you. And if that was the only hiccup, then we are pretty lucky and happy because we have quite something on the menu today. What we want to show you guys and how we want to do that. So I don't want to do too much of an introductory talk, but we will today first look into an Atmos mix done in Logic with the Dolby Atmos Composer by Fiedler Audio, of course, which is the easy way to get from a stereo mix into the Atmos world pretty quickly and easily. And then Thomas Fiedler has something prepared for you to show some outstanding features of the Dolby Atmos Composer where it shines and appears to be much more flexible and powerful than some, at least, maybe all the other solutions out there. So, Thomas, do you have something else to add before we dive right in?
No, just that, today the big topic is Logic Pro, and so what we will have, what we will be looking at is a superior workflow for Dolby Atmos in Logic Pro using the Dolby Atmos Composer, and why it is superior, and what are the features you will get with the Dolby Atmos Composer, which the native workflow of Dolby Atmos in Logic Pro cannot offer, at least in the current version. And this is quite a lot.
Yeah, okay. There's a gentleman in the chat who was asking for if we could turn up the volume a little bit. That's not so easy as far as I know, because we have this pretty complex setup here, and just crank it up, people, if possible. Let us know if it's bearable, and then let's get into this. So, first of all, here is our guest screen with Thomas completely. This is me. Hi again. So this is us both. And if we may, Thomas, please say go.
Go ahead. Go.
We can go into Logic. Here it is. And I want to walk you quickly through the concept of this mix. The track is War of Roses by Joerg Huettner, who was so kind to allow us to use all his individual tracks. And I came up with this mix in the quick and dirty way, fast road from stereo to Atmos. Let's see what we have here. Here's the window of the Dolby Atmos Composer. We close this for a moment, and I give you a quick rundown. So here's your basically the stereo mix of the entire project. I made a smaller version of that mix, used only a couple of the tracks, and you can see here also as well, if you see the mouse, that yeah, we don't have switched this entire project to multi-channel. Logic is not working in the 7.x mode. We're in the stereo mode basically. And how we turn this into Atmos, you will see in a second. So I just give you a quick listen for a second that you get an idea about what's going on here. Hopefully that works.
Don't tell me that you tried when all you really did was beg. Don't tell me that you gave it all when you're still in check. And don't cry me a river, I've got my own. You act like you're a savior, but I need a home. But I need a home. 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 In this war of roses, I just play the pawn. And when you think to yourself, who have we become? Who have we become? Who have we become?
This is the mix. Let me just stop it for a moment. Yeah, I hope you could hear that. What you hear is, of course, the binaural output of the Dolby Atmos Composer. And yeah, where and how did this stereo set get into Dolby Atmos? Well, the concept is pretty easy. We've been talking about that, and there's also a workshop on my YouTube channel on how I did this. I came up with a bus system, and here in this folder track you can see are all my Dolby Atmos buses I created. And if we go over here, we see these buses. And they are called left, right. You can see it here maybe a little bit better. Center, extended left, right, sides, back, mid, top, top, front, top, rear, LFE, and then some effects, objects. And this is all in a 9.1.6 setup that you can here see in the Dolby Atmos Composer. We have this composite, which is basically the bed that here consists of 9.1.6. And how do we get the signals into the Dolby Atmos Composer? Well, that's simply done by these beams, which are inserted here in each of the buses. So this beam is going to stereo, left and right. This is going to go to the center. And just for the fun of it, let's see, what's this one here? Oh yeah, that's top rear as it seems. And then by just simply assigning the tracks here, the individual tracks you can see to the buses, I can make these signals go to a certain set of speakers. I have this thinking of handling it as groups of stereo, and I can place basically the signals there pretty quickly and can come up with a wide version of that former stereo mix. I also have, that's one of the beauties of the Dolby Atmos Composer and the Fiedler audio suite of Dolby Atmos tools. I have also here, let me see, I have Spacelab here, and I have set it up in a very simple way, and that is just by also creating a bus channel with Spacelab in there, and I can send simply a send to Spacelab, which means that just with a normal stereo send, I can feed the signals into Spacelab, and Spacelab then gives me that, and you can see it here in the Dolby Atmos Composer here. It gives me that reverb, this 9.1.6 reverb, which I have defined here. And if this works nice and as planned, then let me see where's the vocals. Here are the vocals, for example, and if I put them into solo, because that still works, then with my setup here, you can listen to the vocals just in, if there are vocals at this point. Let me see. Where is it? I don't know. I don't hear them here. Oh, they're on mute. So.
All I needed was a home.
There it is.
Who have we become? War of roses. I just play the pawn. And when you think to yourself, who have we become? Who have we become? Who
So
have
as I
we
see,
become?
there's also another reverb going, which is
All I needed was a home.
a special thing that, of course, also works with the Dolby Atmos Composer if you use only your stock plugins of your DAW, because here I set up a couple of buses with just simple effects that come with Logic. For example, here you can see there's a stereo delay, the space designer from Logic, some basic reverbs that are just inserted here, and they all send their signals into a beam, and this is also going to the composite, to the bed. And I have also additionally created some objects here. For example, the space designer goes into an object bus that's fed here. No, it's also a composite. That's wrong. I labeled it object, but it isn't. That happens, of course. But yeah, so you can also use the returns of your regular stereo effects and place them into the Dolby Atmos space here. And the good thing is, when you have this setup with the buses, your stereo mix stays intact all the time, and you can, for example, do just the normal mixing operations here with all the volumes and stuff like that. And you don't have to always go through the panner if you would use the traditional or the recommended standard way with the built-in Dolby Atmos setup. So let me stop here and see if there are some questions from you guys. I don't see any questions. Thomas, do you have anything to add or to ask? because to get a grip on this concept might be also a little bit of a challenge. What do you think? Did I make any sense here, or was it a little bit too fast or too complex?
Well, this can only the people really answer, because I know this concept is because we were talking so much about it, and it's a good concept to start, as you said before, from stereo to go into the Atmos world, and also to maintain the stereo mix, so that in that case you could even just switch on and off the Dolby Atmos Composer if you have set the beam output to mute, so that they don't output to the buses where they're placed, so that you can then in that manner you can even just bypass or put again back the composer and like make an A/B comparison to the stereo mix. And it is also very easy to understand, because we have this 916 composite, and in this 916 composite you have the different speaker pairs. Well, the only thing which is not a pair is the center speaker, but apart from that you can basically, even with your stereo sources, can send them up symmetrically and place them on the different speakers. And well, you can even use more speakers if you not only send them directly but also use sends to various buses, so you can basically pen them in between just by using sends. This is an approach to actually get started in a nice way and to get a consistent mix, and and then from there there are a lot of different ways to evolve.
Yes, indeed. And as you mentioned this, by adding sends to address additional speakers with just one signal, you can do the forbidden things also, if I might say. For example, some record labels and some service providers have some, some regulations in terms of what you're allowed to do and what you're not supposed to do. And what usually you're not allowed to do is to put signals into several speakers at the same time. But I found out that, for example, if you use the vocals and add a little bit of vocals in the center, you can very nicely control the weight, the value, the presence of the vocals in your entire mix, just by adding a little bit here and there, and make it a little bit more, how would you call it, give it a little bit more gravitas, which leads me to the situation that I want to address in this mix, with this mix as well, just to give you an idea about what you could do with gravitas now with the Gravitas MDS, the Fiedler audio dynamics system. But coming back to the sense, that's also really good, because then you can also, as I said, get anything into Spacelab or automate this in the old-fashioned way in the stereo part of your mix, and bring things in and bring them out and let them show up in your stereo reverb, which is somewhere, and then bring it back up again in Spacelab. Things like this, you get the idea. It's pretty creative, and you can, without getting too much into complex stuff and making the listener too confused, you can create very dynamic, evolving soundscapes without being too obvious there. So, gravitas. That's something I want to touch and show you quickly, because here, and that's a very, very unique thing, in no other application this is possible, because you can't master Dolby Atmos in a convenient way, at least, and until now, or until a couple of months ago, since Gravitas was released. Here in the Dolby Atmos Composer, I will show you the Logic screen again. So here we are. Here in the Dolby Atmos Composer, you have that master channel feature. And in this master channel, you can insert modules. And these modules are, for the time being, gravitas. That's exclusive here, that you can put gravitas into, you know, the master section. And you can see here I have 4 times gravitas inserted. Let me show you the editor screen. Let me just check on which window it's showing up. So here's gravitas. You can see it. And if I hit play, just a quick intro into what gravitas does. If you see here, gravitas is a full, basically 128 channel dynamics device. Here we're using mostly just the composite, so you have these channels coming up here. And if you're interested in gravitas, you will find more about the control and the multi-channel control in the tutorials we have available. Here I just want to show you what it does to that mix. So let's listen a little bit and see what I'm doing here, because I'm adding one after the other, the gravitas modules, and I will explain later what I did there. So.
In this war of roses,
switching this on.
And when you think to yourself, who have we become? Who have we become?
Just a little bit of dynamics.
All I needed was a home.
With this one, listen to the frequency changes. Here I did a mid boost, basically.
I see you on your knees, boy, you better start to beg.
With this, I'm adding some EQ, like
You tried to shield
giving
your
a little bit
eyes,
of brilliance
so I gave
to
you
the mix.
mine instead.
And here I'm adding
And don't cry me a river,
something like a finalizer.
alone.
So
We've been here for a minute. This is our home.
I guess now the mix is loud enough, isn't it? So there's no EQ module available, but with gravitas you can use the frequency curve to season to taste a little bit of dynamically controlled frequency bands, and get also into EQing up to a certain level. That's very convenient. With the mix control, you can add what you want to feature there in the entire mix. And then in the end, as you heard, I have this big one brought in. Maybe let's get
I see you home.
a little bit more from the song.
In this war of roses, I just play the pawn. And when you think to yourself,
Frequency coming up.
who have we become? Who have we become?
Some mids.
Who have we become?
Now if you listen to the hi-hats,
In this war of roses, I just play the pawn. And when you think to yourself,
and now make an impact.
who have we become? Who have we become? Who
So let's stop here and see if there are any questions in the chat. Seems that there are no questions. I hope I was somehow clear and transparent about what I'm doing here, and that you realize what a powerful and very unique tool Gravitas is here for your Dolby Atmos production, because in this just one session I went from a simple stereo mix into the Atmos world just by using the static bus system, so to say, and then performing also some mastering with some little Spacelab 3D reverb edit as well. And it turns out to be a decent Dolby Atmos mix. We have checked it out on some Dolby Atmos systems already. Thomas went to Berlin after IFA and tried it in cars and also on a big monitor system. And yeah, I wasn't there, but Thomas, how did it work for you?
Yeah, it worked well. We listened to it on a 916 speaker layout, and it came across quite well compared to a lot of other mixes we heard in this session.
Cool, thank you. I love to hear that. And here's a question in the chat. If their normal VST plugins can be used in the Composer, no, can't.
No, it's not possible to do so because VST or VST3 or any other audio plugin format is not capable of processing up to 128 channels, which would be required to be able to process the entire Dolby Atmos mix. But I can say so much that we are working on a solution for that, so that more and more modules will appear in the master channel, so that you will not be bound only to Gravitas, but there will be a lot of other interesting stuff coming up.
Cool. Well, yeah, Thomas, please let me know. I hope this was not too quick. I hope it had some interesting points I could bring across here about the basic philosophy of approaching a mix you could have in any DAW, because as I said again, and I say it again, not a single Logic Dolby Atmos thingy is switched on. We're completely in stereo mode, and we're using only Dolby Atmos Beam and the Dolby Atmos Composer with the help of this bus system to go to the Dolby Atmos world. And that is a very organic process, because you can start by just creating the first bus, setting it to left and right, selecting all your channels from the stereo mix and applying them to that first bus, and there is your mix already in the Dolby Atmos world, but just from the stereo speakers. And then you can start by adding a bus and another bus and another bus, and if you assign them to the speakers, you can decide very organically which instrument you would like to pick out of the stereo mix, and you want to feature it in a certain position, and then also add your effects as well. That's very easy and very transparent once you understand the concept. If you have some questions regarding that, there's some fold downs.
Yeah, the export,
symphony,
the
export. Yeah, of course.
Yeah, I can explain it now when I go through the different topics, if you want.
Yeah, you mean with your part of the...
Yeah, with my part of the explanation.
Okay, yeah, because that would be also the perfect segue for me to turn over to Mr. Fiedler and what he has prepared for you today, because he will get into more details about what the Dolby Atmos Composer and also the mastering and the export functionality can do for you. So we don't touch too much twice. Let's get over to Thomas.
Yeah.
And get him into details and some specialties.
Yeah, so let me share my screen here. So I hope you all see my logic now.
Perfect.
And so I will correct a little bit my position here. Yeah, one question was here if you can connect to the Dolby Atmos renderer. No, because it's unnecessary. And it is unnecessary because all the functions of the Dolby Atmos renderer are built into the Dolby Atmos Composer. All the renderer is built in, so you don't need any other external application, which makes it quite easy and quite portable, so you can work with your session wherever you are, and then you transfer the session and the plugins, and then you just open it up somewhere else. You can even switch between Windows and Mac, and it's all very seamless. You don't have the routing hassle which you usually have when you try to get audio and metadata from inside your DAW to the Dolby Atmos renderer application. So without further ado, let's start here. I will use the same song. As you can see, it's also the same song, War of Roses. But I just start out from a stereo session here. I just imported the audio tracks, and that's it. There's nothing more than that. And they are all routed to the stereo out. So if I hit play, you should hear the music. So that's it.
You act like you're a savior, but I need a home.
So, yeah, I want to actually touch some things which are specific to Logic, which are important to know. So the first thing is monitoring. Monitoring can be done in two ways from the Dolby Atmos Composer, and Logic itself has the biggest bus size in Logic is 714. So this would be for option 1 the biggest possible speaker layout to be able to monitor with, and to do so we have to first switch the session to the correct format. So we go to Project Settings, Audio, and it's opened on another screen. So here we have it. Currently it's just set to 5.1 ITU. So we just set it to 714 and we are done. This is now the surround format we will use. So Logic will use for all things set to surround the format of 714. We don't switch on Dolby Atmos because we don't use the internal renderer of Dolby Atmos. And also, if we would switch that on, the surround format would be reduced to 712, and we don't want this now. So we just leave it here at 714. We close the window, and then we are basically ready to go. We will then have to switch all our channels here, all our tracks, to not go anymore to the stereo out, but we want them to go to the surround output. So we just select surround here. So then the surround panners appear, but we are not very interested in the surround panner because we have Dolby Atmos Beam, of course. So that being said, the master channel now changed from being a stereo channel to a 714 track, and that gives us a possibility to output the 714 directly from Logic. So to now bring this mix to Atmos, we just have to make two steps. The first step is to put the beam everywhere. Now Logic is instantiating all the Dolby Atmos beams, and on the master channel we just instantiate the Dolby Atmos Composer. So that's opening, and it is recognizing all the incoming connections which we can see here, and it recognizes that it is on the 714 track, so it is all automatically set to monitoring through 714. We can of course select other formats for monitoring, but we are limited to maxed out at 714 if we want to actually monitor directly through Logic. There's another feature in the Dolby Atmos Composer which is called the external output. So if we are in a studio with a 916 layout, for example, we would need to use the external output. We can select here any audio interface which we have available on our system, and then the then the composer will output to that audio interface, and we can set it here to 916. So, and then we will get everything out to 916. But I will not go further into details here. Just you can select any audio interface here, and if you encounter some hiccups, then you might check what is the combination of audio interface selected in the composer and in Logic. Some drivers require that this is the same in both. Other drivers, like RME drivers, for example, they require that they are separate. They don't like to be spoken to from two different points inside the same application. But so this all depends on your audio interface, and you can figure this out basically by yourself. The details of these features are well covered in our tutorials and in the manual. So yeah, that being said, we have another very important format which we can also choose to output, and this is called stereo direct. Stereo direct, as opposed to normal stereo, is a direct down mix from Atmos to stereo. The idea why Dolby invented this is to be able to create the stereo mix out of your Atmos mix. What Tom showed you before was the way from stereo to Atmos, but this stereo direct is meant for the other way around. So basically, the idea for the future is that you start working and producing in stereo in Atmos, and you want to then derive the stereo version of your mix from that Atmos mix. And for that, there is stereo direct, which is, by the way, not available in Logic. So currently, in the current version of Logic, you cannot do this. You have only the stereo option, which is basically a down mix of a down mix of a down mix. So the Atmos mix is down mixed to 7.1 something, and then it's down mixed to 5.1, and then it's down mixed to stereo. So it goes through various stages, and therefore sounds a bit different. And as you can see on the left side, all the beams connected with the 916 format. In Logic, you are restricted to 712. That would be only these 10 channels here, and because this is the biggest size which can Logic basically handle, and but in the Dolby Atmos Composer we can go up to 916. So we don't call it bed, but we call it composite, because it is composed of technically of the bed 712 and plus the 6 additional dynamic objects which are at fixed position in space for the rest of the speakers. Now you might ask, why is this important? If you want to mix for Dolby Atmos with a maximum compatibility with all possible speaker layouts where Atmos can be reproduced, you will want to use 916 always, at least in 99.9% of the cases. Why? Because if you are mixing to a 712 bed and then reproduce your bed on a 916 speaker layout, there will be 6 speakers silent. They will just not be used, and any panning onto this bed will be done in between the 712 layout, and none of the additional speakers of the 916 layout will be used. So using 916 is highly recommended, even if you don't have 916 to monitor yourself. And it's also not possible to do something like what is possible in other DAWs, like to create an object bed, like to construct, to take an arbitrary bus with a higher count of objects or higher count of channels, and then put a beam there and turn that into objects. This is not possible in Logic, so that's why, yeah, we are restricted in Logic to 712, but with the Composer and the 916, we are immediately going around the mixing engine and have 916, full 916 here. Yeah. Well, what more can we do? We can actually use some of the surround capabilities of Logic. For example, if you have some kind of surround recording or even a 714 recording from some microphone array or some conversion from ambisonics, you can actually use it. You need to create an appropriate track. For example, I can create I will just create an aux track here quickly to demonstrate. And so we also have to set this track to surround output. We give it a bus as an input so that we can actually send something there. And we switch the input also to a surround so that change. Yeah, now. So now this bus is completely surround from top to bottom. And anything we send there, if we now put a Dolby Atmos beam there, this Dolby Atmos beam will recognize that it is on a 714 track. And you now have all the 704, the 714 tracks you have here. The LFE is not visible as an object, obviously, because it's going directly to the LFE channel. And well, then you can take the whole ensemble of the objects, and you can turn it around. You can pan the whole thing around with the different panning modes, which I will not go into detail here, but you can basically get very creative with this way. Also, something which is not possible in Logic itself, because if you have a look at the surround panner of such a bus, you have an incoming surround signal or an incoming 714 signal, and it goes out, but you have only one dot which you can actually turn around here. So basically this is the weighting, the weight of where the channels are sent to, but it's not really feasible to have any kind of detailed access to the different objects or the different channels in your mix. And well, you can turn any beam into dynamic objects so that they are not mixed to the composite. Just selecting here. Wait a second. No, here you just change it to objects, and if you change this 714 beam to objects, you get 7 plus 4 dynamic objects, which are now appearing here in addition to the composite we already have. So this is an extremely convenient way to make all kinds of complex mixes, whatever kind of signal you have. Next point on the list is, and there's also another important point. Let me just open up this beam again. If you have I cannot show it right now because I'm not in the Atmos mode, but if you switch Logic to the Atmos mode, then you can switch any channel which is mono or stereo, not the surround one, but only mono and stereo. You can switch to a dynamic object, and but you don't have any convenient way of actually panning your objects in a way around you. Like, for example, if you want to make a circular movement in a way that the objects stay at maximum distance. Why is this important? This is important, as Andrew Shapp says, balls to the walls, because if you move an object closer to the listener, it will appear on more and more and more channels and more speakers, and this might create some confusing phasing effects. So this should only be done if you really know what you're doing. Mostly if you do some movements through the center, but the end point will be again at maximum distance. And in the beam, it's actually very, very easy. You can turn around everything by just changing azimuth or using elevation and moving them vertically. So you are basically very free to do whatever you want without actually changing the distance. So your objects will stay perfect point sources in space. So they will not smear or they will not change their sound. They will just change their perceived directions. And yeah, one more thing which is only possible in the composer is, of course, that you can load a personalized HRTF for the Dolby binauralizer. So if you switch that off here, then the Dolby Atmos Composer turns on the binaural listening mode, and then you can actually select a personalized HRTF if you happen to have something. This one can be produced by the Dolby app. They have an app on the App Store where you can measure your head and then you get a personalized HRTF. Yeah. HRTF means head-related transfer function, so it's basically something which is according to the geometry of your head, so that the binaural experience will be better. And speaking of binaural, in Logic it is easy to listen to also the Apple spatial version, which is different than the Dolby renderer, and to do so you switch off binaural here and you go back to 714. This is another reason why it is good to place the Dolby Atmos Composer always on the 714 track in the master, so that you can very easily, after the Dolby Atmos Composer, put Logic's own, it is in imaging, the spatial audio monitoring plugin. So here in the spatial audio monitoring plugin, you can select different possibilities for listening to Apple spatial audio. Currently, I don't have any headphone connected which is able to make head tracking, but you can select here the other two Apple renderer versions, and this will give you the possibility to listen to your mix in Logic directly to as it would sound on Apple Music. And it needs to be 714 here in the composer, because internally Apple Spatial Audio is doing exactly that. It's creating a 714 version of your Dolby Atmos mix and then binauralizes it, so you will get the original basically out of it here. And another nice feature which you will also have, which also Apple is not able to do, because in the Dolby Atmos plugin, which comes with Logic, you can only ever select one monitoring format simultaneously. If you use the external output, you can actually configure your routing in such a way that you listen to speaker layout and to headphones on different channels, so that you can, if you have some kind of outboard monitoring controller, have both in the same way and just switch back and forth from your monitoring controller to quickly assess the changes you make on speakers and on headphones. And yeah, that was it regarding monitoring. And Tom already showed you what it's all about with the Space Lab, that it's very easy to actually have Space Lab in your mix. I will just show it once again, just how extremely easy it is. So you just create an aux track, or let's say I want to send my Vox VH1. This is the easiest way in Logic. I create a send, I send to bus 2, and then Logic automatically creates a return track here, an aux track, aux2. And the only thing I have to do is to actually put Spacelab there. So let's get Spacelab. Here we are. Here's Spacelab. Now, as you can see, Spacelab in the composer appears here on the bottom as a new connection, and it's automatically configured as 916. So it's with just one click you have a 916 immersive reverb immediately in your Atmos mix. And again, don't forget, 916 is really the recommended format. So if you want to do reverb, do it in 916, so that when your very beautiful reverb is sounding, that it actually sounds on all speakers. So you get the maximum spatial resolution. Yeah, and then you can basically, turn off dry, and then you can basically use the sense to send anything to this aux channel. You even don't need to switch this aux channel to any format. You can leave it at stereo and just send anything there from your mono and stereo sources, whatever you want, to get the 916 reverb part of it. So in that case, the 916 reverb part will go into the composite, which is here, and the dry part of the signal, what you actually want to reverberate, will go through the beam on the channel from where you send. And any beam can be set to an object. So in that case, you will have the dry part on the dynamic object and the reverb set into the composite. And if you want to get fancy, you can see here now, this is the sources part. You can see this is basically the virtual room, and there's the listener. There are the two objects. Since Spacelab is on a stereo track, we only have two objects as incoming, but you can add other objects here and get them also into Spacelab and position them differently in this room. And thereby you can do the panning inside Spacelab, which creates other different and nice effects. Like, for example, you get individual reverberation for each object depending on the position, which is very distinct in sound. So you get a very nice and very how you can say, very clear and distinct sound from each of the objects inside Spacelab, which then if you would have just put everything into one object. And of course, if we want, we can also switch that bus where Spacelab sits to surround. And then Spacelab had just said closed. But then Spacelab now receives actually a 714 signal. And if we open the options here, we can actually load the appropriate 714 signal. And then, as you can see, we can have all the 714 inside Spacelab. So even if you have surround sources, you can send them to Spacelab. Spacelab will reverberate a 714 signal onto a 916 reverb. Perfect. So if you want to get more sophisticated with more sources here, you have to use Spacelab Beam, which is another plugin which comes with Spacelab. But to showcase all that and explain all that would a little bit beyond this live stream. But we have nice tutorials where all that is explained in great detail, so you can look it up and see how you can connect Spacelab Beam with Spacelab, and so you can get into every instance of Spacelab Interstellar up to 256 objects. So the sky is the limit. And of course, you can have more than one Spacelab instance in your mix to get different kinds of rooms, different kinds of reverbs, which will be all nicely mixed together, with the for the Dolby Atmos mix. And since the topic of automation came up here. Yes, of course, everything is automatable. You can automate the positions of the objects in Beam. You can automate the positions of the objects in Spacelab. And yeah, you are quite free to do lots of different stuff here. And yeah, and then, well, Tom already mentioned it and showed it. We have the master channel with gravitas. Gravitas is currently the first module which we have, and you can compress or process the entire mix, but you can also get creative and select in the inputs selector, which is accessible via this button. You can select only parts of your mix, parts of your channels, and process them separately. So you have an immense amount of flexibility to really fine-tune everything incoming afterwards. So you basically can also select a bunch of channels for the detector, which basically triggers the compression, and another bunch of channels which shall be actually compressed to create some kind of creative pumping effect or whatever. So it's not only mastering, but you can get really creative in your whole Dolby Atmos mix without actually having to do any kind of headstand with routing inside your channels, how to get this actually routed to the correct side chaining and so forth. Oh yeah, apropos side chaining, the Dolby Atmos Composer can actually receive a sidechain signal and forward it to gravitas. So you have even more flexibility here. And all that is not possible with Logic, and not only with Logic, it's not possible, but with any other Dolby Atmos implementation, because none of them has a point where all the mix comes together and processing can take place. Basically, all other implementations send directly to the renderer, and the renderer can then only monitor or output or export to an ADM BWF file. And that's it. Then you are done. But we really opened up the place just before the renderer so that you can actually do this processing, and you can do mix bus processing, and you can do mastering and all that nice stuff. Yeah, and well, another thing which is more for the pros, which the composer has but Logic does not have, is descriptions and groups. Most musicians won't need it because it's just a way to describe the content of the Dolby Atmos ADM BWF file. But if you, for example, happen to work together with some other people in the film industry, where different people do different mixes, then you can actually name all your channels. You can describe what's in it. You can assign a certain groups, and so that when the mixing engineer receives your, let's say, your film music part, then knows what is inside the ADM file and can actually work with it in a very nice way. And another nice feature of the groups is that you can also you can exclude certain groups from export, so you can actually export submixes. For example, you can create a group called vocals, assign it to the vocals, and then export with vocals and without vocals for the Dolby Atmos karaoke version. And yeah, since the topic of export came up, now let's do this. This is actually very easy. On this place here on the bottom, you see to set the in point and the out point. So you can basically set the starting point of the region which you want to export and the end point. And then you select here on this options page what you want to export. So you can select ADM BWF file. This is by default on, because that's the file which you will deliver to the distributors. And you can also additionally select if you want to simultaneously export the speakers and the headphones, which formats which you have selected. So you can export them as either one multi-channel WAV file or mono WAV files, multi-mono WAV files for each channel. And when you are done, you just hit the export button. Then the dialog comes up, and I can just say, let's make a test export. I just say save. I currently have selected just the first I didn't change the in points, so it's just the first 10 seconds. So now I can export by either just hitting play and letting it run through, or using the offline bounce feature of the DAW, covering the same range which I have set by in point and out point. It's even recommended to start a little bit before the in point and a little bit after the in point, so that the whole range is actually covered and the correct size is exported. If you use the offline bouncing feature of the DAW or of Logic in that case, that what Logic itself spits out you can throw away, because all relevant files will be exported by the Dolby Atmos Composer. So if I hit play now here, you can see the export takes place. Export successful, congratulations. So, and another nice feature is into the Composer you can import. What you can import? You can import ADM BWF files. Let's open them. Now we have the imported ADM BWF files, and we can do basically the same work with the master channel on them. And we can also, of course, measure the loudness and adjust the master gain here. This is a very convenient way. For example, I have this now. If I click measure ADM, then it will quickly measure the second I have to select the right format, and then measure ADM, and then it's measured. It goes in maximum speed, so the whole 10 seconds were just measured in less than 1 second. It shows you the values here. So what we have here, true peak is very low, and the integrated value is also very low. So we could basically increase it, but we won't, because it just was a small part of the song. So that gives you really an easy way of correcting your loudness. Because the distributors, they have certain guidelines or rules on the loudness of the material you can deliver. So you have to actually adjust it. Of course, you can also measure the loudness in Logic after the Atmos plugin of Logic, but then you have to use 2 other plugins of Logic and put them after the Dolby Atmos renderer there, the Atmos renderer plugin, and then you have to play through and so forth. So which can be tedious at times, but here you have everything inside the master channel, and Logic has no easy way to correct for loudness differences. Here we have just the master gain. You can just, with one turn of the knob, change it to the desired value, export, and you are done. And you are ready to actually deliver to the distributors. So of course you have the same loudness feature and the master gain also available inside your mixing session. So when I unload the ADM file, all the connections came back here. And if I want to measure an ADM file, not an ADM file, a mix, sorry, then I just set the right format, which is usually 5.1, and then just hit play, and it measures.
Don't tell me that you tried when all you really did was beg.
So when your measurement is done, which you usually should from a reset state from start to finish of that part which you want to export, and you see that something is off, like here for example, I could say, okay, my song is 2 dBs too low. I could increase it by 2 dB, then I just increase it 2 dB, or I just better type just 2 in here, and then when I measure the next time, it will be exactly at -18, and I will have perfectly hit the guideline of the distributor. And the same way the same thing which I didn't show before, but you can also basically, when you have an imported ADM file, you can re-export it as an ADM file, or also quickly create other re-renders of any kind of format. If I switch it on, I can basically choose any format here which I want to export. So this is an extremely flexible solution to create Dolby Atmos in Logic or in any other W. Another real another real advantage of it is that the workflow is exactly the same anywhere on any DAW. And it's extremely, it has an extremely broad range of DAWs and applications which can be used with the Dolby Atmos Composer. I recently had a user which created a mix in Notion, which is a notation program, but which is able to load instruments and plugins and so forth. So he created an Atmos mix entirely in Notion, and other people created Atmos mix in Native Instruments Machine, which is a special software for EDM creators, but which can also load plugins. So you can basically do also in Dolby Atmos mix there. So. And the workflow is always the same. You have the beam, you have the space lab, you have gravitas, you have the composer and the master channel, and you have all these pro features available anywhere you are. There are also some caveats in Logic's own Dolby Atmos way of doing things. The first thing which was quite obvious to me is that you can basically work in any sample rate. So you can convert a 44.1 kilohertz session of your song to a Dolby Atmos session without actually resampling. On first glance, it sounds nice or it looks nice, but on second thought, you are not made aware that the result will actually be 48 kilohertz. And this counts for any sample rate of your session. So in whatever sample rate you are working in Logic, if you convert it to the Dolby Atmos session, the ADM BWF file will always be in 48 kilohertz, even though Dolby Atmos can also be produced in 96 kilohertz. The composer is able to do 96 kilohertz, but if you have a 96 kilohertz in Logic, a 96 kilohertz session in Logic, and you enable Atmos, it will eventually result into a 48 kilohertz ADM file. And just today when I was experimenting, I also encountered a bug, and the bug is that in Logic these settings here, the trim values for the different formats, are not set correctly in the ADM file. So you have set it in a certain way in the Dolby Atmos rendering plugin for Logic, but when you then export and load this ADM file into, for example, the original Dolby Atmos renderer or the composer if you want, then you see that these values are not set in the same way you had it in the Dolby Atmos rendering plugin. So, well, I don't know how they passed the certification with Dolby, but that's actually the current state of affairs. And they also, which is important for people working in the film music world, is that when they export their Atmos content, they always start the timecode from 1 hour. This might be surprising for some people. For musicians, it's not really important. For pure musicians, which just distribute. But if you're working with music for film or video or Netflix or whatever, you need to be aware of that. In the composer, you can set it manually to whatever you need to fit together with the other timelines of the other engineers who create Foley, speech, and effects and whatnot. So, that's basically it. A quick rundown through the different features of the Dolby Atmos Composer, which are beyond the possibilities in Logic. And, well, if you have any questions, just leave it in the comments or now in the chat if you're right now here online and seeing. Let me check if there is something. Well, automation we mentioned. It's as always on the Logic track. So if you want to automate your beam, you automate it on the track where the beam sits. And same with Spacelab. You can automate Spacelab where Spacelab is. And if you want to automate, which is also possible, if you want to automate gravitas, which is in the master channel, you can assign parameters from gravitas to automation lanes of the composer. So for example, I can select input gain from gravitas, the input gain slider, and select the second lane of the composer, and now that parameter will be available on the master track. So I will have to check if I can quickly see that here, the master track. Do you know how to make, Tom? Do you know how to make visible the master track in the track list here?
The automation on the
the master track. That it,
No, I never did this. Let me.
There is something here.
Oh, you need to create. You need to select the master track and create a track.
I got it. Yeah, just right-click master track, create a track.
Create a track, and there you have the automation.
Then you can see here Dolby Atmos Composer input gain. Here we have it. So let me open up the composer again, and then let me open up gravitas. So here's gravitas. If I just change gravitas here, you can see automation is passing through from the master channel through composer directly to gravitas, and you can automate practically anything in gravitas. You have up to 512 possible automation lanes in the composer, so you can go wild with automation. Question: are there bundles? Of course. You can, if you're on our web page, you can click on the products button or on the bundles selector, and then you will see all the list of possible bundles.
And as I just put in, there is cyber season. The Fiedler cyber season is starting kind of soon.
Yeah.
So watch out.
Yeah. So.
Wonderful, Thomas. This presentation was, and the whole system is amazing. It's just incredible what you could do. You even triggered some ideas, because I told you at the weekend I was in this very acoustically perfect cinema with an amazing Atmos system. And when you were showing that you were moving around, 7.4 objects or even bigger ones, what kind of possibilities for the music would be there.
Yeah.
Because I realized everything was in Atmos, but then the major tracks were just in stereo.
Yeah.
And that would be a next level experience when the pop tracks would be really an organic part of the Atmos sensation as well, which is possible then to create with the Dolby Atmos Composer.
Yeah, I mean, for example, if you have more and more multi-channel effects plugins come out, so basically you could hook up a multi-channel effects plugin there on such a 714 bus, and then use the beam after this plugin to, basically create everything and move everything around, move the outputs of the multi-channel effect plugins, let them swirl around in space in your Atmos mix. So you can really go wild with that.
Wonderful. Well, now it would be Q&A time. So if you guys have some more questions, just let us know. If questions show up later, no problem at all. This video will be on the Fiedler channel, and you can, write your questions later into the comments there as well. We will monitor that and address them. And here's a question coming from English Bob. Any secrets to getting very defined objects in binaural? My objects seem to always blend in. Well, yeah, Thomas, you could answer that.
Yeah. Well, there's one thing you need to know, especially for binaural. If you, first thing is very important. If you have an object in space and you pan it to between speakers on a composite or bed, if you will, then it will appear on these speakers between which this object is. That means in binaural, you will have two positions binauralized. That when the bed or the composite is binauralized, means all the different fixed speaker positions in space are binauralized at the same time. So your object, which let's say is between the center speaker and the left speaker, and really in the middle, will appear equally on the center position and on the left position. So you will have the object appear on two positions which are binauralized. If you switch that same object to be a dynamic object, a separate dynamic object which doesn't go into the composite, you will have a better point source. So you will have a better a better positioning, perceived positioning. It will sound a little bit smaller, but that is due to the fact that it's really becoming a point source in space. And if you move it around your head, just for the sake of an example, you will have a very smooth movement, while when it's going to the composite or to the bed, then it will basically go from one fixed speaker positions to the other, of course with panning and smoothly, but it's not exactly sonically, it's not the same as when it is a dynamic object. And the other thing is balls to the walls. Here we are again. Keep the distance as maximum, because then it was really well defined. The closer it is to the listener, the more it does spread out. And this also counts for dynamic objects, because the Dolby Atmos algorithm also spreads out things in binaural space. So keep the balls, keep your balls as distant as possible, your objects, and if you really want to do movements, and if you really want to get a distinct localization, make them dynamic objects, and that's the best way of doing it. And you can go get it even one step further if you use Spacelab. Because if you use Spacelab and you do the panning inside Spacelab, getting the objects into Spacelab via Spacelab Beam, do the panning there, then each of the objects gets a distinct position-dependent early reflection pattern. And this is really important. This really increases the perceived difference between two objects. Basically, you can switch objects inside Spacelab also to become dynamic objects. It means the dry part is a dynamic object which will be positioned by the Dolby algorithm, and even though they are dynamic objects, the reverb part will still have the individual early reflection pattern per object. So it's a really sophisticated thing. It sounds a bit complicated, but the sound result is amazing, because this is how things actually happen in real life. If you move something in space, then the distance of this object, which you just changed in this position in a real space, changed its distances to walls and other objects and so forth in the room. So the early reflection pattern actually gets different, really dependent on the position. And Spacelab is expert in rendering that into your Dolby Atmos mix. So that way you have different levels of getting really a distinct, a really differentiated sonic experience of your different instruments or objects in space. And yeah, what more? That's it basically. That's a good starting point. Well, and then you can also think about EQing. No? We are used, in the stereo world, we are used to use EQs to make space. No? Because in the stereo world, we have a very small space compared to Atmos. And now that we have a lot of space, we most mixers tend to just spread things out and don't care about EQ. But at some point they will realize that EQ is still necessary, although it will be used slightly different in the Atmos world than it is done in the stereo world. But still, it might be very helpful to use EQs to carve out certain frequencies so that they do not cover so much each other. And of course, there's the old trick of a sidechain compressor. You can use a sidechain compressor to duck one object while the other is playing, and so forth. So all the mixing tricks you know from the stereo world, you can perfectly translate and adapt to the Dolby Atmos world. You have to replay that. Yeah, I know it's a lot of information, but this is kind of the list of possibilities which you have, and yeah, go ahead and experiment.
And I think, please correct me if I'm wrong, that there's also a tutorial for that. You should look for the Spacelab tutorials, which are dating from the time before the Dolby Atmos Composer was even conceived. Am I correct?
Yeah. This is there is the tutorial about the connection between Spacelab Beam and Spacelab itself. And when the Dolby Atmos Composer version 1.5 came out, which had the connectivity with Spacelab, then we made another tutorial where the path is shown how you can switch an object in Spacelab to become a Dolby Atmos dynamic object. So these two tutorials you might want to look at to know how to achieve this effect.
Wonderful. And also a recommendation is of course, scroll back in time on the Fiedler Audio YouTube channel and also have a look at the download section of the Fiedler Audio website, because there you can find quite some templates and also some demo projects.
The knowledge base.
The knowledge base it is.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. And there's also a lot of stuff you can grab and play around with to get really familiar with this, completely new and complex world of possibilities. But all this is done and served to you to just create amazing sounds and amazing music. So there's something more coming. How long before other modules start appearing from you guys, please? Well, Thomas?
Well, I can't give you a definite date, but soon. Very soon. New stuff will come out.
Soon, like in, because that's relative. No, we leave it. We
leave
it
at this for now. We will detonate the bomb when it's constructed.
Yeah. So no warning time.
No.
Cool. Yeah. When there are no more questions for the time being, as I said, and I say it again, feel free to add questions to the comment section there. Then we would wrap it up for today.
Yep.
Thank you so much, Thomas, for the incredible tools, because it still blows me away. And each time I hear you getting into the details, I find something I wasn't aware of already. So that's amazing. That this whole setup works so fine for the live stream amazes me as well. So thank you for helping to do this and bring this amazing content to the world. And what else was I saying? Oh, let us know what you would like to see from us, because as we have this system going now, Thomas can show you how the DAWs work, the DAWs work, and show sound examples. I can do this from here as well, and we can do this live, and we can, of course, want to do more, but we want to do stuff that's relevant for you, of course. And here's another one. Great webinar. Thank you so much. Well, thank you guys for attending. It's an honor. It's the first one for us to have two computers with two projects come together and stream to the web. now it works, and we can do more. So thank you very much, Thomas.
Thank you.
Do you have some final words, or should we just say goodbye for tonight? Enjoy the replay of the videos, and we will be back.
Yeah. As the Terminator said, I'll be back. So, yeah, we will be back on a regular basis with more content, with more live streams and more information. So stay tuned. And spread the word.
Yeah, do that. And let's see if the system does. Yes,
It does.
Works.
It does.
Here are the balloons. So people, everybody, thank you so much.
Thank you,
Thomas. And see you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye.